I think there's a lot of misconceptions about UX in the AV world, as there are in lots of other industries as well. One of the biggest ones would be people think you can be a bit user-centered, as in we've got this Waterfall project where we're going to design a thing, test it, build it, and deploy it, and somewhere in there we'll speak to a couple of users, maybe, and then that's it, tick, we've done the user bit. They don't realise that the rest of the world, the rest of the industries that design and build technology moved on a long time ago from that kind of model. And design is circular and iterative. And you don't just occasionally speak to a user or a couple of people. You do it all the time in every project, round and round in iterative design cycles. And you try out concepts very early on before you even build a thing. You can test things really quickly and easily by talking to people. Describe it, draw a picture of it. You don't need to wait until you've built a big prototype room and then bring some people in. So I've launched a company called Easy User Lab, and what we do is we are a software platform for doing user research. And in my old life, I would build research labs for big companies where it would be a very big project. It would take months or sometimes years to build a lab or a set of labs. I'd sell you the technology. I'd build a big rack of AV equipment doing control, video, audio, all the things that we in the AV world know. And you don't need that anymore. I can now do all of that off in the cloud. All I need in the room is a way to capture what's happening. And everyone's got that in their pocket. So my new system, we can incorporate high-end AV gear, and that can all speak to our system in the cloud. But most people who are using it want a lab in their office, and they want a lab in a cafe, and a lab in someone's house, and a lab in a hotel. So they just use phones as cameras and microphones. We capture directly off devices, and we're allowing people to do user research basically anywhere they can get internet. Technology has moved on quite a bit even in the past 4 or 5 years. I can now capture everything reliably off in my data center and then stream it, record it, do analysis on it, give you transcripts, edit video automatically. We're doing some AI automatically on the system where it's allowing someone who does user research, who's usually their job title would be a user researcher, it allows them to do more research with more people quicker, basically, and much cheaper. So a long time ago, in my very early career, I worked in theatre, and I was a technician, and I became a lighting designer. And when I moved up to London, I had a choice. I could either carry on in that world, and I realised there's no money, and there's a lot of late nights, and I didn't want that. So I moved into corporate AV. Was in corporate AV for a long time, and ended up running the AV department for Google outside of America. So everything outside of America globally was me and my team. Because I was at Google, I got to know a lot of people. And I was there in like the mid-2000s when it was a very open culture. You could meet anyone, you could ask questions, you could work on other teams in your spare time. And I started doing more and more work with user researchers. And we started doing research on AV projects. And my idea then was that I would stay in the AV world, but work more and more in UX. And I got to a point where I decided I wanted to cross over. I just became a user researcher on Android, on search, on Google's products, rather than sticking to the internal AV. Off the back of that, a lot of people in the UX world started asking me about technology for UX. And there wasn't any. There wasn't anyone I could point to say, these people will build the technology for you. Because all they were doing, a big company needed a lab. They'd go to their IT team and say, build us a lab, and they'd give them a computer. And it didn't work. There were so many instances while I was still at Google of people asking for this service. I ended up leaving and founding a company to do that. So that was in 2016. And then I ended up selling that company last year. And I'm now doing basically the same as I was doing in hardware, but doing it almost entirely in software. So there's a group of us working on the AVIXA standard for user experience design in audiovisual. And it's a very long-running project. It's not an easy thing to publish a global standard. And we've been working on walking a line between taking all the knowledge of the UX world and presenting it in a way that works in the AV world. And it's not easy, because most people in the AV world have never worked in the ways that UX people generally do. Like I said earlier about iterative design, about having design cycles, about breaking away from a strict waterfall model of building something. So the standard is going to help people in a very practical way. We don't want it to be something people just read and go, what's that? It's going to give practical steps and guidance for how to implement a user-centered design process that exists out in the world already, how to take those existing practices from other industries and apply them in a way that works for the AV world and for the people in the AV world. I still haven't found any company, a manufacturer, integrator, design, anyone in the AV world broadly who employs a full-time UX person. They might employ some designers who design stuff, who do maybe UI design or general design, but they don't employ, to my knowledge, anyone who's a full-time researcher. And it still surprises me that there's no one. I wouldn't expect every company to employ someone, but I expect the big companies, I'd expect the big manufacturers, the big integrators to have UX people who can work across every project, because that's how all the other industries work. IT contractors, even just general consultancies like the big four consultancies, they have their own in-house digital teams who work across all their projects. Why don't UX consultancies? I don't know. We haven't quite launched Easy User Lab yet, but I do consultancy under Adam G. Banks. So look me up on LinkedIn or on my website or anywhere else.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.